For decades, US jet makers dominated the skies. Boeing wasn't just a manufacturer, it set the global standard. That dominance is now slipping away, not because of a single A-plane, but because China is driving a seismic power shift that is reshaping the aviation industry. Through its state-owned champion, Comac, China has launched a coordinated, multi-front campaign to take over an industry America once believed it owned. This isn't a distant or hypothetical threat. It's happening right now, fueled by protected markets, geopolitical leverage, massive state backing, and a series of public failures inside Boeing itself. And the most dangerous part is that this shift is happening faster than most Western jet makers are prepared to admit. The biggest reason US jet makers are losing ground to China isn't technology, it's access. China is on track to become the world's largest aviation market by the early 2040s, and Beijing controls who truly gets to compete inside it. Boeing's own market outlook projects that China's fleet will need to more than double to nearly 9,755 airplanes by 2044. In a free market, that growth would benefit Boeing and Airbus alike. But China's aviation market isn't free. It's being deliberately shaped to build a national champion, and that changes everything. Beijing has built an economic fortress around its domestic aviation sector to nurture its own champion, Comac. While there's no formal mandate, state policy and influence aggressively push Chinese airlines to prioritize Comac's aircraft, like the C919. This state-backed favoritism guarantees a massive, built-in customer base. It gives Comac the runway it needs to scale up manufacturing, work out the kinks, and improve its engineering, all without the immediate pressure of competing internationally. The numbers already tell the story. Comac has announced more than 1,200 orders and commitments for its C919 jet, with nearly all confirmed orders coming from Chinese airlines and state-owned leasing companies. Launch customer China Eastern Airlines now operates a fleet of 11 C919s, with 95 more on the way. While Comac's production is still struggling to ramp up, with supply chain bottlenecks forcing it to slash its ambitious 2025 delivery target from 75 jets to a more realistic 25, the long-term goal is clear. Some analysts estimate Comac could capture a quarter of all new single-aisle jets added in China over the next 2 decades. For Boeing, this is a huge blow. China has historically been one of its most critical markets, but that access is now severely constrained. While Airbus has maintained a stronger foothold, partly thanks to its final assembly line in Tianjin, Boeing has been increasingly challenged. This protected market ensures that even if the C919 isn't yet a perfect one-to-one competitor with a Boeing 737 or an Airbus A320, it doesn't have to be. It has a captive audience, giving it time and resources to mature. China is playing the long game, and it's playing it masterfully. The second front in this battle isn't fought in factories, but in the halls of government. China is using its political and regulatory power as both a shield for its own industry and a sword against its rivals. The state isn't just a passive supporter of Comac, it's a decisive player. The most direct support comes from the Civil Aviation Administration of China, or CAAC. The C919 received its crucial type certificate from the CAAC back in September 2022, allowing it to begin commercial service just months later in May 2023. Meanwhile, getting that same certification from the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, EASA, or the US Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, is a much steeper climb. EASA's executive director recently estimated that certification could take another 3 to 6 years, pushing any potential approval out to 2028 or even 2031. FAA approval faces even tougher geopolitical hurdles. But for now, that doesn't matter. With the CAAC's blessing, Comac has the keys to its own kingdom, the vast Chinese domestic market. At the same time, Beijing uses geopolitics to its advantage, effectively turning the tap on and off for foreign manufacturers. Amid rising US-China trade tensions, Boeing has found itself at a significant disadvantage. After a massive $37 billion deal where China's airlines ordered nearly 300 jets exclusively from Airbus, Boeing released a statement expressing disappointment that geopolitical differences continue to constrain US aircraft exports. The message was clear: political alignment can be rewarded with market access. While Boeing has resumed some deliveries of the 737 MAX to China, its order book and market share remains significantly weaker than Airbus's. This political leverage creates a climate of uncertainty that's toxic for business. Airlines plan their fleets decades in advance. They need predictability. When one manufacturer, Airbus, has a final assembly line in Tianjin and favorable political winds, and the other, Boeing, is subject to the whims of a trade war, the choice for a state-influenced Chinese airline becomes obvious. China isn't just building an airplane. It's building a geopolitical ecosystem where its own champion is set to thrive. And once political access becomes conditional, even the strongest aircraft design can be sidelined overnight. If a protected market is China's fortress and political leverage is its sword, then the third strategy is its war chest, a virtually bottomless pit of state-backed money. Comac isn't competing on a level playing field. It's competing with the financial weight of the world's second-largest economy standing directly behind it. The scale of that support is difficult to overstate. According to analysis by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, China's civil aviation initiatives tied to Comac received as much as $72 billion in state-related support through 2020 alone. That backing takes many forms: direct capital injections to keep the program solvent, massive government-funded research and development, preferential tax treatment, and access to land and infrastructure at little or no cost. Together, these measures dramatically reduce the financial risk normally associated with launching a new commercial aircraft. But the most powerful weapon isn't just funding, it's financing. When a Chinese airline considers buying an aircraft, it isn't simply comparing the sticker price of a Boeing 737 against a Comac C919. It's weighing a conventional commercial offer from a private manufacturer against a state-backed package designed to secure market share. Chinese state banks can offer loans with longer repayment periods, lower interest rates, and greater flexibility than Western financiers. State-owned leasing companies can acquire C919s and lease them to airlines on terms that prioritize fleet adoption over profitability, allowing Comac to undercut competitors without bearing the usual financial consequences. This approach dramatically lowers the barrier to entry. Even if the C919 is viewed as a less mature aircraft, a financing deal that minimizes risk can make it the most rational choice. Over time, this financial leverage does more than secure domestic orders. It creates scale, operational experience, and political momentum. And looking ahead, the same model could be exported abroad. By bundling aircraft sales with Belt and Road infrastructure loans, China could offer developing nations an all-in-one package that Western manufacturers simply cannot match. This isn't normal competition. It's state-sponsored industrial strategy, deployed with long-term geopolitical intent. China's fourth strategy is its most ambitious, a systematic campaign to build an entire domestic aerospace ecosystem from the ground up, deliberately reducing, and eventually severing, its dependence on Western suppliers. This is the long game, a patient, state-directed effort embedded in the National Industrial Blueprint known as Made in China 2025. Unlike short-term market tactics, this strategy is designed to reshape China's position in high-end manufacturing over decades. For now, the Comac C919 is far from a fully indigenous aircraft. It is better described as a globally assembled jet built inside China's borders. Its most critical systems still rely heavily on Western technology. The engines are the LEAP-1C, produced by CFM International, a joint venture between America's GE Aerospace and France's Safran. Avionics, flight controls, and other essential components come from established suppliers like Honeywell, Collins Aerospace, and Liebherr. These dependencies expose Comac to export controls, sanctions, and geopolitical pressure, a vulnerability Beijing is keenly aware of. But this stage is intentional. The C919 is not the end goal. It is a learning platform. China is using its role as a customer to methodically become a competitor. Through joint ventures, licensing arrangements, and localized production, Chinese engineers gain first-hand exposure to global aerospace standards, certification processes, and industrial workflows. The Airbus final assembly line in Tianjin is a prime example, offering years of hands-on experience in large-scale commercial aircraft production. At the same time, Beijing is channeling billions into domestic suppliers across materials science, avionics, manufacturing equipment, and propulsion. The most challenging piece of that puzzle is the engine. Development of the CJ1000A turbofan is underway, intended to eventually replace Western power plants on future C919 variants. Jet engines are among the most complex machines ever built, and experts widely agree that a reliable, certified domestic engine remains many years away. Still, progress in metallurgy, single-crystal turbine blades, and manufacturing tolerances suggest China is steadily closing the gap. This supply chain strategy serves several purposes at once. It reduces exposure to sanctions and export restrictions, lowers long-term production costs as domestic supplies mature, and creates an industrial base capable of supporting more advanced programs. That foundation is essential for projects like the C929 wide-body jet, now pursued as a fully Chinese effort after cooperation with Russia collapsed. Although the C929 is not expected to enter service before the mid-2030s, its success depends entirely on whether this parallel ecosystem can truly stand on its own. China is not just copying the Western supply chain. It is attempting to replace it with one it controls from end to end. The final, and perhaps most tragic, reason for America's eroding dominance in aviation has nothing to do with China's strengths and everything to do with Boeing's own shocking failures. For decades, the Boeing brand was synonymous with safety and engineering. That reputation has been shattered, creating a window of vulnerability that Comac was perfectly positioned to exploit. The crisis began with two fatal crashes of the 737 MAX that claimed 346 lives and led to the plane's worldwide grounding. China was the very first country to ground the jet, a move that was both a safety precaution and a politically charged signal. But the problems didn't stop there. In the years since, Boeing has been plagued by a relentless series of high-profile quality control disasters, from issues with its 787 Dreamliner to repeated production delays. The nightmare peaked in January 2024, when a door plug on a brand-new Alaska Airlines 737 MAX blew out mid-flight. The incident, caused by missing bolts, was a terrifying illustration of a breakdown in manufacturing quality. The fallout was immediate. The FAA put Boeing under intense scrutiny. And though an initial production cap of 38 jets per month was imposed, the agency granted an increase to 42 per month in late 2025 as the company showed signs of progress. Still, these self-inflicted wounds could not have come at a worse time. Just as Boeing was stumbling, Comac was getting ready to run. The reputational damage to Boeing has been immense, giving Chinese airlines the perfect justification to turn inward and embrace the C919 as a viable and politically preferable alternative. In the high-stakes world of aviation, trust is everything. Boeing's operational crises handed its biggest strategic rival the one thing money can't buy: a golden opportunity. What's happening here isn't just stronger competition. It's the result of two very different systems colliding. China made a long-term, state-driven decision to build an aerospace industry at almost any cost. The United States, meanwhile, allowed its most important aviation company to prioritize financial engineering over manufacturing discipline. That difference matters, because aviation is not a normal market. It's an industry built on trust, safety culture, and execution over decades. And once that trust is damaged, it doesn't come back quickly. Boeing's crisis didn't just weaken one company. It accelerated China's opening to step in with an alternative that, while not yet globally competitive, suddenly looked politically and strategically acceptable. This isn't just about a duopoly becoming a triopoly overnight. The rise of Comac represents a fundamental challenge to the Western-led industrial order. For now, Boeing and Airbus still hold massive advantages in production scale, global support networks, and, most importantly, international safety certifications. The C919 is not yet certified to fly in Europe or the United States, a major barrier to its global ambitions. But China is playing the long game. The C919 is just the opening move. The C929 widebody is already on the drawing board, aimed directly at the profitable long-haul market. The question is no longer if China will become a major power in aviation, but how quickly it will happen. Boeing's path back is steep. It must not only fix its deep-rooted production problems, but also navigate a geopolitical landscape that is increasingly complex. Are we witnessing the slow decline of an American industrial icon? Or is this the wake-up call that finally forces Boeing, and the US at large, to reclaim the legacy that once made it the undisputed ruler of the skies? The next decade will provide the answer. If you want to understand the complex rivalries reshaping our world, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let us know in the comments what you think the future holds for Boeing and the global aviation industry.